Hello, I'm Renee Ballard, the host of Let's Talk Design, where we talk to the talented creatives and creators about the business of design. Today, we have Samantha Hobbelen joining us. Samantha is a natural entrepreneur. She applies her imagination and her business savvy when she sees gaps in the market that pique her interest. Currently, she's the creative force and founder behind Sapia Creative. She brings 15 years of hospitality experience to the table, and Sapia Creative is a luxury events brand that specializes in crafting unforgettable moments from everything from private weddings to corporate conferences. But prior to Sapia Creative, 10 years ago, Samantha created Hobie, a nursery furniture range designed for new parents looking for premium finished rocking chairs for their newborns and babies and small children and toddlers. During all of this, Samantha is also a working artist. She paints bright and bold, large format abstract works, which she exhibits across her hometown on the Sunshine Coast. Welcome, Samantha. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Also, I should add, just for context, and I always like to say this in each episode, how we know each other. So I met Samantha, I was just doing the math this morning, which we're talking about 10 years ago and 47 and a half weeks ago. And the reason that I know that to the day is that we met at Mother's Group in 2014, and we had just had our babies about 2 days apart, it turns out. And my baby girl, Isla, was 4 weeks when we went to Mother's Group for the first time. So I met Sam and I was instantly struck by this powerhouse woman. I knew she was an entrepreneur. I knew she'd already had a couple of careers under her belt, and we instantly became fast friends. And we only spent about 2 months together in Sydney before we moved off to Melbourne, and Sam went on her entrepreneurial and interstate adventures as well. Yeah, so when I thought about creativity and especially in business of design, of course he popped into my head, because you can't create engaging events without getting creative and designing something.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. And how lucky were we? Mother's Group is not promised to make good mates, but far out. So grateful. So grateful.
100%. I know. And fast forward to now, 2025, big question. So it might be hard to define, but anything that pops into your head. As a very successful entrepreneur across many fields, can you share how you've applied your creative thinking, either conventionally or unconventionally, toward that success?
That is a big question, and it's a great question. And I think for me, it's about distilling it down. I guess there's the business perspective, and then there's the art of creating. And I suppose when you marry those two things together, I think that's when you get a successful and thriving creative-led business. But in terms of the creative side, for us, everything starts with storytelling. And so, what are we trying to communicate, either for our client, for our couple? We traditionally do private and corporate events. We do a wedding here or there if the right person just seems to come to us, but it's certainly not something that we actively, seek out. But it's the same thing with any kind of event experience. You're looking to what's the why? That's kind of the best starting point, is going, why are we here and why do we exist? And I think when we talk about why our business exists, we are there to create, these unforgettable, immersive experiences, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to a client and that creativity and applying that creativity, we're starting with a blank canvas, and we're starting with a place often. Sometimes we're helping them find that place. But that's always a starting point in terms of whatever the glorious blank canvas is that we're given, whether it's a beautiful tropical island in the Whitsundays or whether we are in a ballroom in Sydney or in a capital city. It doesn't really matter. But we know that that's the environment that we need to work with and not against. So that's a really big kind of first thing. And then I think it comes to what's the story, what's the why, and then what's the vision? What are we actually, what do we want it to look, feel, touch, all of those kind of points. And I think, that's kind of where it starts for me and my team. I am forever banging on going, okay, let's go to the endpoint and then let's reverse engineer it backwards. I think they must get so sick of me going, and let's reverse engineer it. So boring. But it allows greater predictability as you then work back So whether you're doing an event, whether you're designing a space like you do, like it's a project at the end of the day, right? And you've got metrics and you've got data and you've got, KPIs and things that you've got to reach. But then when you've got to bring and immerse this creativity into it, like that's the magic, right? So I think in one way, the conventional creativity, that's the like how we're going to make it look incredible, make it feel incredible, make it smell incredible. All of those senses that we are often pulling to go, okay, what is that overall feeling going to be like? Because at the end of the day, the question we're always asking ourselves is, how is a client or guest going to feel when they leave? And it's all about what's the feeling. It's very hard to tangibly put data to that to go, well, how are you going to make someone feel in a certain way? What are you going to do? But there's certain levers with a creative process that you can do that helps that along to go, we're going to help them feel A, B, C, D. And then I think the second part of your question was the unconventional creativity and thinking beyond the event. And for me, where my brain goes to when thinking about that is that it's not just a creativity, let's say in the event styling, to go, okay, like we're going to have an entrance and then it's going to be this and it's going to be that. But it's actually in the problem solving, because at the end of the day, we're just solving a whole bunch of problems for our clients, and we're packaging it up in this really beautiful, cohesive, wonderful experience for them. And so I guess the unconventional creativity is the problem solving, and it doesn't kind of sound as sexy and as beautiful and as aesthetic. But I tell you what, without that absolutely meticulous plan, and that's plan A, B, C, D, all of it. And we were talking about this briefly offline earlier. When you have, let's say, for example, a wild weather event that is beyond your control, you need to have everything planned out beforehand, so that because the show has to go on, right? And you can't just go, oh, well, sorry, we didn't think of that. And so I think that problem solving, and whether that is the front end of relationship building, whether that is so for me, I always say to our clients, like if we are doing our job well, we're going to get you to a point in the fastest way where you can close those tabs in your brain that you're still thinking about your event, because it's our job to take all of that information, all the vision, the colors, like sometimes it's their brand story, sometimes it's a deeply personal family event that you need to weave through the event. So it's us getting to that point, and they can close their tabs in their brain in the fastest way to go, okay, it's all sorted and it's all done for us. So with the unconventional creativity, you've almost got a front end of it and then a back end. And so the front end is everything the client is seeing, and all the back end is all of the, the logistics, the budgeting, all of the stuff that has to happen to make sure that it goes off without a hitch.
Amazing. Like, and I totally get you. But with the problem solving thing, I know it doesn't sound sexy, but, years ago I read Martha Beck referred to, there are two kinds of business. One is creativity, like one's creation, one's distribution. So applied practically, a song is made, that's creativity, it's created, and that's distributed via like CD, record, iTunes, Spotify. So that's the distribution. And then, of course, you create new distribution networks, but there's two ways. And so the great thing with being in a creative industry is the problem solving. And that's what makes, I think, design and creativity, like those industries, sustainable long term, because every day you're getting up and solving problems and it feels good. But maybe that also, now I say it, maybe it also suits a certain kind of person. I mean, years ago, I worked in a call center and my God, all I did. Oh, how bad.
So bad.
So bad, so bad. And it was for air freight. So it was incoming calls, just people booking their air freight. And all I did the whole time I was there was try and teach myself how to write with my left hand while I was on the phone, because I was just, I've got to make this count. I've got to get something out of this.
Oh my gosh, at least you were doing something positive with your time. What I was doing when I was working in a call center, which was during the summer holidays through one uni semester, I'd worked out by observing around that if I picked up the phone, didn't talk to anyone, and then hung it up again, my phone would get to the end of the queue, so I wouldn't get a call.
I love it.
Look,
That's where I learned some of my best skiving, like never go to the toilet on your lunch break, always do it on work time.
but now you're a business owner and everything
Yeah.
matters and
And now I
efficiency
notice
matters deeply. Now
totally. I
no
notice
one's
when
allowed to
anyone
go to
does
the
that.
bathroom
Yeah. No
unless it's their
water, no
lunch break.
bathroom. Clever. I totally get you. And that's what I was curious as well. So, because, we're in retail design, you're in events design, and
Mm,
they're similar in the sense of creating a 3D environment that people are in, like are invited into, and they are engaged to whatever level. What
yes.
I think is really hard about your industry, and you mentioned it as well with budgets, is you're creating a transient event, which must affect, because it's not, there's creativity is one part of it, but it's how we apply that creativity. So how do, with the budgets and people's expectations, how do you manage that?
There is definitely an art around communicating around numbers and budgets. And I think many people are just very scared of even talking about it. And it's one of the first things we cover with our prospective clients, because just as much as they're coming to us for a reason, because of the brand that we've built and because of what we're known for, we want to make sure that not only we're a good fit for them, because sometimes we're not. Sometimes we actually have other people in the industry that we work with that maybe some people would see as competitors, whereas I go, you know what? I think you're going to be so much better suited with these guys because of this reason. And budget might be one of them. I think it's about being really honest about, yeah, are we a good fit for them? But are they a good fit for us? And that's, I think, one of the hardest things when you start a business, because you say yes to everything. You're like, I remember it's on our website. I remember my first ever job in my first ever events company that I had. I was in my early 20s. I had no idea what I was doing, but I had been to China and then ordered this 40-foot container of furniture, and then it arrived and I didn't know where to put it. And then these beautiful friends, like, I mean, literally did not think that through. Anyway, but I remember my first job and it was with Brisbane Racing Club and it was for $800. And I was like, nailed it. I'm done. Boom, we can all go home. Like, thought that was just going to be the biggest thing that had ever happened. But gosh, talk about, over 15 years going, okay. And as you take your business, I'm sure it's happened to you guys that you do your first retail space and then this happens, an opportunity comes to you and then you learn more and then you're growing more and therefore your capacity is greater. Therefore, you can take on bigger work and that's exciting. So I think the other really important thing about budgets is knowing your avatar and knowing who your client is. So we just had an innovation day. It was the first one we've ever done. We're a little, we're not a massive small business, I would say, but we're a small, but we are a mighty bunch. And so talking to kind of go, well, why is it just the big companies that do this stuff? Like, what do we want to make it look like? So we invested a full day in all of these just extraordinary, incredible things. And what we got out of it was just so much more than I could have ever imagined. But one of the things that we spent a lot of time on was deep diving into who our avatars are. And we don't just have one. And I think that's where a lot of people I see in events who have events businesses maybe haven't invested time to go, who are we targeting? Who are our people that we're speaking to? Because you speak to different people in a different way. I'm not going to talk to a high net worth family in the same way that I'm going to talk to our biggest corporate partner, because it's not relevant and it's not appropriate at all. So it's really, yeah, for me, that budget piece is really all about being clear in communication right from the outset, also letting them know it's okay for them to talk about it. And if they don't know their budget, then I need to talk to someone else in their company that does. And it might not be them, because you might not be talking to the decision maker from the outset. And we've just got to get to that number as quickly as possible, because then we can reverse engineer the entire experience. And the other thing is that we will never assume what's of value. I say this to every single client. I'm never going to assume what's of value to you. So I'm going to show you some things that might be outside of your investment scope. But if I don't show you, you're not going to know that they even exist. But I'm not going to assume whether that is of value to you. And that's okay. But I'm going to show it to you to show you what's possible.
100%. I think that's one of the things, especially creatives and designers, because we live, in this culture, it's very fun. Like, people talk about money a lot and that belts are in and money's tight and stuff. And that's chitty chatter that we hear on the media side. At the same time, and I always think about this, is that's what people use the phrase, that's expensive, that's cheap, but without a number. And I'm like, are you talking $50 or 50,000? Like, where's cheap? And that it's subjective. Like, let's get a number.
Amen.
And then,
absolutely.
let's calibrate.
And then let's calibrate. That's it. 100%.
Yeah. Like, I know, because we're renovating our house at the moment and we hear this expensive and cheap. And I'm like, no one has even asked my MO. Like, what's my priority here? Because sometimes money's the least of your worries. Sometimes you've got a whole bunch of other priorities. And I always refer to this is, if money was that tight, people would not line up at Louis Vuitton to buy a canvas, and I have one, code for vinyl, handbag. No. People would not be lining up. Entry point handbag at Louis Vuitton is 1,500 Australian. If I could get a handbag, I could probably use one of those Coles bags, 50 cents for the rest of my life. It's never going to wear out.
Absolutely.
So
functionally, it's going to do the same thing, right?
Are we carrying stuff or exactly? So, it's always a reminder, money is only one of the currencies.
100%. And I think it's, so important too, as creative-led business owners, that we also need to find out what are the pain points of our client and what are their priorities. It's not just about, and I don't love that psychology, the sales psychology of just going, we're going to find their pain point and we're going to exploit that. That is not how we roll at all. I think it's really important to know what their pinch points are, because that can inform how you can serve them better, but also knowing what's of value to them. So many of our clients, yes, there's a budget expectation. Sometimes it might be to the dollar, and we know that. And if that's been communicated clearly, what we are then going to produce for them is not going to go 1 cent above that. Whereas if we know that there is a little bit of flexibility, then we're going to show them some other options that we know that they're going to benefit from. But I think at the same time, it's about knowing, is it about money? And I think I agree with you. That's only one metric, because for most people, it's about time, and it's also about experience. The first conversation we have with a lot of corporate clients is with an EA, someone who's in the role, maybe the CEO's EA, and they often get lugged with going, okay, well, you organize the awards, gala, whatever we're putting together for them. And I always really sit with them and esteem them to go, this isn't your job. Like, you don't have the skill set for this. It's like asking me to do the job of accountant. I'd be like, God, I don't know, is that debit or credit? I don't know. That's not my skill set. So don't ask me to do that. And so for us, we often will talk to them about what's the languaging that they need. They're not caring as much about budget, but God, they want someone on their team. They want to feel like they have an extension of their team looking after their best interests, because whilst it's not their job, if they cock it up, it's on them. So it's really about recognizing it's more than just about budget. I think budget's one part of the conversation. I think it's critical. I think it needs to happen right from the outset, but I think it's far more three-dimensional than that.
I think that is the absolute nugget and nail on the head, especially between the wheat and the chaff. Obviously we're birds of a feather like that, certainly with our business as well, we're creative and we're at the top of our game with a lot of experience. We adore retail design. At the same time, it's the account management, and it's about picking up. I've got all those, talking about all the tabs open and just someone dealing with all of that stress. That's exactly what this is. It's thinking on their behalf. Because again, when companies work on race to the bottom pricing, it sucks for that's its own model. I understand that. But some clients the money isn't their biggest priority. It's about nailing the event, nailing the space, getting a really good product at the end. And
100%.
I mean, it's great for us business wise because a lot of people cancel themselves out of the race. But I feel for them as well because I'm like,
Yes.
you're not listening to the client's desire. Like and I always call it the brief behind the brief, and you call it the why. I'm like, what is the
Mm-hmm.
brief behind the brief? Why are we really here today? Like, I get we're here to design a store, but thereafter we're here to, what is it that do you want to course correct the brand? Like, is this a hero moment because it's, a big address that you're taking, or, something I imagine very similar with you as well, especially with product launches, internal like enthusiasm building days and stuff.
100%. And I feel like, maybe at some point we should have also done a double major in psychology as well, because often like that is what you're really trying to get to. Like, what is that inner thinking around you? Exactly, like I'm gonna take that, the why behind the why. And it really is to be able to extrapolate that in, a pretty efficient way, particularly when you're doing that first, pitching sequence or whatever that looks like. I think it is, and again, like for us, it comes back to who's our avatar, who are we talking to, and are they the right people, and are we the right person for them? The sooner we can come to that, then the faster we can go. Okay, yes or no, and then you move on to the next thing.
100%. And I think, the why behind the why, I'll move on, but just this last point, which just popped into my head. And I don't know if this is a true story or not. No, I'm paraphrasing the quote, but the quote was from one of
Who
the
cares?
Harley.
Make it up. Make it
Yeah,
up. I'll believe it.
plug and play. The quote was from one of the Harley Davidson bosses. And he said, we don't sell motorbikes. We sell the opportunity for dentists and lawyers to feel like tough guys on the weekend.
Amen. That's exact. Nailed it.
Ain't
Nailed
that
it.
the
You
right?
can
Just
totally
like,
quote that. You can totally quote that. Whether that's true paraphrase or absolutely false, that is the exact that is the exact science and psychology behind sales. And you need to nail that as a creative to go like, what am I actually offering here? Oh,
yes.
Harley
Oh my God,
Davidson,
killer.
it's so true. That was
So
that was
true.
amazing.
And you can't unsee it. Next time you see one, you're like, what's up,
Mm,
Johnny?
it's so true.
Sorry,
My
Jonathan.
my husband wants a Harley.
Tells me he's a good man. Um, so being in the event space, it's about
Mm.
engagement and real-time experience. Can you tell me, are there any trends that you're seeing emerge or devolve in the industry?
Absolutely. And I think it's one of the things that we were talking really briefly before about social media has absolutely created this trend laden beast. Like whether you like it or loathe it, it's here. And individuals have just such a greater access to information. Like I think about back even 10 years ago as to what we had access to from a creative perspective. Like maybe we would have had a Pinterest board. I don't know. Maybe that was cutting edge a decade ago. Can't remember. But now you've got like all of these incredible social media platforms. You've got these people who influence and, people's buying and purchasing behaviors and decisions, and the same thing goes with events. So I think for corporate events are not as trend driven, I would say, as private events, but yet there is always I suppose there's always an angle, and I think it's always about finding that. So at the moment, there is definitely a trend around like luxury and exclusivity versus scale, and I love that.
Mm.
Because once you get an event over about 150 people, it is really hard. It is so, so hard to inject the magic detail. So once you get over that, let's say you're then in a ballroom or you're in an arena, well, the science of scale then really comes into play. And so that's a really different way of styling versus if you are in an intimate private dining room in the CBD, but you are going to invite 30 of your top customers or influencers or whatever the goal is, or whatever your marketing goal is. that experience can just be just so much. That intimacy is kind of where the magic is, like that luxury experience. I'm definitely seeing that with luxury brands. These more, I don't know if you'd call them micro events, if they're kind of 30, 50, 80. And you know what? Like, what a great, it's so smart too, right? This, the psychology around it going, well, how do you become one of those 30 people in the room? You know what I'm saying? So,
Mm-hmm.
interestingly, really quick side note, I was on a call yesterday. We do luxury gifting as well. That's, again, that's come out as a very side note. It's a whole new brand. However, that has come out of a need of listening to our clients and going, tell me what your other problems are. Like, how, what else can we solve for you? So, a number of years ago, a client came and was like, oh, do you guys do gifting? I was like, absolutely, we do. And I was like, tell me what you need, and I'll let you know if we can do it for you. Of course, we could do it for them because we're in this industry and we're problem solving, and we have creatives at our fingertip. We have artists and artisans and brands that we work with both in Australia and offshore. And so we've got this great ability that I didn't realize at the time to put this wonderful offering together. I was on the phone yesterday to a supplier because a client is wanting some Akubra hats, very specifically iconic Australian brand. And he was talking to me about their modeling at the moment and he goes, do you know what's happening with Akubra? I was like, I do not. If you'd like to share with me, help me. What's up? Like, I don't know anything about hats, like just that I have to wear one because I live on the Sunshine Coast and I don't want to get skin cancer. But he was like, since they are so essentially, this is, I'm totally paraphrasing now, basically because they are so popular and because they are pretty much selling out as they stock, for their stockists, they're now shortening their attribution. So if this store was selling 400, let's say they're only getting an allocation of 150. Well, isn't
Oh,
that
but
an
ourselves a
interest?
Birkin. But ourselves a Birkin of the hat world.
Isn't that interesting though? And it's the same with the event. So you're like, well, all of a sudden, if brands prior are saying, okay, cool. So for this event, there's 200 people on the guest list, but then you're down to 30. Hmm, that's an interesting and fabulous psychology, don't you reckon?
Yes. Oh my God. Do not underestimate the power of FOMO and exclusivity.
100%. Do not underestimate the power of that. Yeah. So I think that's definitely one thing we're seeing. One of the other huge trends that it shouldn't be a trend, it should just be a thing, is sustainability within the event landscape. So that's been a really interesting one over the last few years because I feel like when people started talking about sustainability, maybe only a couple of years ago, it was a lot about talking about sustainability. But when you kind of dug a little bit deeper, many people were not actually doing anything about that. And so that's a really exciting thing for us. We've got incredible suppliers who have worked so hard in their own sphere to become B Corp or to, whatever is going to let them achieve that kind of sustainable organic certification. And then we get to partner with them, that therefore it's just that positive, ripple effect, which I think is a really important thing. And that's one of the questions we'll always ask our partners to start with, or potential clients, is around what's their company stance on sustainability and where does that fit into what's important to them, just like the budget, just like the money. So that's those would be probably the two things at the moment that I would say. And also like that color cherry, that maroni cherry,
Mm,
that kind you would know the hue color,
burgundy.
that
Yeah,
color
I
kind of
know the one you mean. Yeah.
burgundy. I feel like that's really having a moment in Australia at the minute in
Mm,
events. And I'm here for
yeah,
it. I love
right.
color. Love color.
Oh, I know. And red has been out to pasture for a long time. I think because we had the Hygge Scandi mid-century vibes for so long. I think red's back with Horish abandon. Mm.
And don't we love that?
It's the best kind of abandon. If it's not Horish, I don't want any part of it. Going back to sustainability, we've had some fun with sustainability because retail, it's really hard for, like in retail's defense, retail is commercial. It's going to be built sometimes over 200 stores or 2,000 stores around the world, or 200 stores in Australia, or it's a one-off shop. And so, it's the budget is only so big and there's a lot of
Mm.
stakeholders and stuff. And I imagine corporate much the same. But we've had some great success with sustainability of thinking sideways and things like once the material is ripped out of the store for like the make good at the end, can it be recycled then? Can it be repurposed then?
Mm.
And then what material is it? Yeah, like, so what material is it made out of? You know, we went down the path of gal, and I learned all about hot gal, cold gal, galvanized steel. Like,
Oh my
I learned
God.
a ridiculous amount about gal. So much so I've got a pet name for it. It's me and gal. My gal. Gal is one of them. And then also freight dropping as well. Like, where can rollouts, you know, lessen their freight impact on the world with not farm to plate, but, you know, like manufacturer to fit out kind of. There's other different ways to pull levers. Are you guys finding that in events as well?
100%. And it's not just with that. I'd say with that is definitely happening. And so from things like, let's say, florals, I feel like flowers are one thing that until not long ago, people never really thought twice about flowers, but now there is this, and it is the younger generation than you and I, really looking at it and going, well, they're going to die. Like, what are you going to use them for? So we will always, very, very often, if we can, and we've got these incredible floral artists that we partner with all over the country. They're just so spectacular. And if there is a way that they can do the florals still to create whatever the immersive landscape is that we're doing, but so that we can gift them at the end of the event and they can pick them up and take them with them, we will 9 times out of 10 do that, because it's kind of repurposing them, giving them a second life, gives a bit of joy. Everyone loves free shit, don't
I would
they?
take someone's eye out to get a swag bag. Like, if I don't get the goodie bag, I just feel like I'm itching. I'm like, oh, what
So
if I
if
miss?
literally you've missed that mascara sample, you've missed the tubular mascara sample, and your life will never be the same. I know. It's
Mm-hmm.
the same at the end of an event, and it's a beautiful thing. So what we do, we don't just do that. We will then give the script to the MC to go, please read this, because this then comes back to whatever the brand pillars are of the company we're working with. Just read it out. Everyone feels warm and fuzzy. It's a beautiful moment. The brand looks even more generous that they've put on this event, and now they're gifting this stuff, and it's just a win-win. It is just such a win-win. So yes, with sustainability, that is definitely the fresh versus silk flower thing. That's a whole nother conversation. But with the gifting, particularly, one of the things we've really had to do a big deep dive into this year is packaging. And what does that look like? And can you actually achieve a luxury led gifting experience that is also sustainable? And I think the answer is yes, but far out, you have to work really hard at it. And you have to make sure that you have nailed both the environment, if it's a room drop at a luxury hotel, you know, if it is a goodie bag, if it's what, you know, all of that. But the great thing is there are just incredible businesses, small businesses in Australia that are now using 100% recycled Australian cardboard. Most of the cardboard in the world comes from the Philippines. And so cutting that part out so that you're like, okay, well, we're just using this circular market down here within our country. You know, you then don't even, you know, start with me about like what then that looks like about, you know, the cost of the fuel to get all of that stuff. Like, I think that's a whole nother thing. But all of those considerations that all of a sudden now you're using not just Australian made products, not just B Corp, not just what have you, and whatever that gifting suite looks like, but then how are you packaging that? You know, we've used lanyards for conferences that are made of seed paper. So they take them out and you go plant them in the earth after. So again, that is not going to be the cheapest option, and it's not going to be the most economical option, but what's the why? What it all comes back to.
And that is, to me, that's exactly what Sapia Creative does. And I can see now how that's coming together because, like you said, you do luxury events and luxury. Everyone, when you say luxury, people, again, they just think money or they think wastage. Mm-hmm. Those are the 2 mm-hmm. things. I don't. I hear luxury, my ears prick up and I lean forward and I'm like, where? I'll go show me. I'll go get it.
Absolutely. Ditto. I'm just like, that's what I was born. Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. But luxury, especially in service, is attention to detail and taking those details off the person so they can enjoy the experience regardless of the details. And that, I mean, in a retail sense, you know, the first time you go to a luxury store and they fold up the receipt and they put it in the little receipt card thing that's got the embossed logo, Chanel's.
Mm-hmm.
I bought Chanel sunglasses about 2003. Just remember where I was, Collins Street. And and I was like, oh my goodness, like the receipt is so, let's not even look at such a dirty thing as a receipt, put it in something beautiful. I mean, it's probably sprayed with fragrance as well, but that attention to like that's the luxury, is the attention to detail. That, and then some, and like you said, you wrote the script for the MC about the flowers so people can take them home because you pre-designed them so that they can travel. Like that's 10,000 decisions and 10,000 executions, but that's luxury to me.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like that last 10% is what matters. The 90%, it's a lot of macro. Yes, you absolutely still need to know everything about that, but it is that last 10% that we will obsess over, because that's our job, to obsess over those things and go, oh my gosh, what about if we, and then you think of things that might, might apply in a different way, and you go, but maybe we could apply that here. What would that look and feel like to the client? And then we roll through that. And then as a team, we go, yep, that's it. That's a really great touch point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. It really is about that attention to detail, obsessing about it. And again, I know I've said it, I think this will be the fourth time. It's obsessing about the why, because there's like the macro why, and then there's all the micro whys underneath it. And you need to tick off every single one of those. And I think we get it. I say to our guys, I know when we've done a great job, you can see people's faces. If we're on site and we're also managing the event, you can just see, because it's like this wonderment that they're like, oh, I haven't seen this before. I haven't felt this before. Doesn't mean that we've had to reinvent the full wheel for them, because probably it has existed before, but maybe we're giving it another life, or we're just shaking it this way to make it incredibly just new and fresh for them. So I think that's really important too.
Oh, I love that, because that's flipping it out. I call it flipping it out. Like flip it out,
I
flip
love
it out.
that.
How can we flip it, flip it, flip it, flip it? Look at it upside down, back to front. And certainly with events as well, like you said, we have all been to events, of course, but it's just that tweaking. How can we flick this out? How can we flip this over? How can we put this upside down? And I mean, of course, the National Galleries are great. When the artist installation goes in and they're all on the ceiling, literally flipped out, or, you see Yo-Yo's pumpkin flying in the air in Japan. Like, wait, what? I've seen a pumpkin before. I've seen something flying before, but not together.
Exactly, exactly. And often it is about looking just at things outside of that square. We were talking earlier, I was diagnosed with ADHD a couple of years ago, and it was just such a wonderful moment of going, oh my gosh, it just makes sense now that the way that my brain is programmed, it just sees things and thinks about things just in a different hypercolor way that maybe to someone else might seem a little bit crazy. But when you distill it down and harness all of that, it's like, oh my gosh, you think, you've thought of this. And we've now got this, I suppose, wonderful storybook that we take our clients through this process. Because that's the other thing, is being able to communicate what you want to achieve, because what we achieve for our clients isn't on Pinterest, because it hasn't been done before. So you can't show them photos of it. So it's about then also, how do you communicate the vision? And I would imagine you guys have to do this in such an exceptional way with retail design. There's so much technology and so many wonderful apps and creators that I go, we need to be able to get what's in here down to a render so that we can show the client, what is that going to look like, so that when I'm talking with my hands and going, and it's going to be this, and then this is going to, they're like, okay, but what's that going to look like? So I think that's the other really important side of it, is that yes, you need to have the creativity. You also need to be able to communicate that in a really digestible way for your client.
As an account manager, if I could pass on anything to any other account manager, it is learn how your client absorbs information and give it to them that way. Don't ask a goldfish to walk. Like, you know, we have clients who will only WhatsApp with us. We have clients who can only do face-to-face calls. We have clients who only want to do emails. I mean, I don't give it, like, if you want me to do it with, like, drive a USB over, put it in your computer and hit open, I will do that for you. Like, how, yeah,
Absolutely.
and I think it's key in this industries as well.
Agree,
Well,
because
for
that's the art of
success.
listening. You know,
Mm.
you need to listen because if, yeah, you're exactly right. We've got clients that they love to text. I'm like, okay, we're not really texters, but if that's a way that you're going to communicate and we're going to get you from here to here to here, and that the final outcome and that final throughput is going to be an exceptional event experience, okay, then that's how we're going to do it. And you need
Yeah.
to be don't you need to be so highly adaptable as a creative,
That's my
so
business motto,
adaptable.
adapt or die, adapt or die, adapt or die, every day, adapt or die. Like it's
Oh
on like Donkey
gosh.
Kong. That adrenaline gets me awake in the morning.
Yes.
It's not
Adapt or die.
healthy.
And
Adapt or
it's
die.
true. I think ego plays a big thing in that. You need to leave your ego at the door when you're a creative, because it's not about what you want. It's about being able to execute the vision of your client. Yes, you're going to bring your piece of magic to that, because and your experience and expertise, because that's why you're being engaged. But I think that listening piece and that ego piece are just so critical, so that your clients know that, you know, we've had it happen to us, like not often, but we've had it happen that you go first round, first draft, or what have you. The client's like, "Ah, actually, could we maybe," and we haven't absolutely nailed it. So for us to be able to listen to that and go, tell me more about that, ask more of the right questions. And then on round number two, they're like, absolutely nailed it. That is exactly, and that is so critical as well, right? Because creativity is so subjective. And
A
so what you
hundred.
and I think's cool, Jason's going, that's so weird.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, reading Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic, I think, is a good one for learning. You know, the creativity comes through, the product is what it is, let it stand on its own and onwards. You don't need to be judged for it because it is easy to wear your heart on your sleeve. And that's, you know, it's a bit of a school of hard knocks and just letting it flow. But one of the things, I mean, you've got to be in the right industry as well, like we were saying, but you've got to fall in love with the work. If you fall in love with it, and I can, you know, we have like
Mm-hmm.
in our, you know, what we do, we have everything from sporting brands to shoe brands to hair salon brands that we work with, you know, all in, and hospitality brands. Like, there's no, we don't work with a niche industry, but you got to fall in love, like, and you just get obsessive and minutiae. And it's, I mean, it's got to suit your personality, but it's so fun to fall in love with the project.
100%. And you do. You said that before we got online, was the faster you can fall in love with a project, like the better. I think that is the best gold nugget of advice, because you have to find something in each project to get excited about. Otherwise, it's going to feel like the same thing over and over. We're the same. We don't work with one type of client or in one sector. And I remember right back when we were starting Sapia, we were working with a large resources client in Australia. And I feel like everyone has an opinion about resources, whatever that might be, as do I. I have a personal opinion about it. And as we got deeper into the project, the thing that I fell in love with, and by the end of it, we were all so devastated when it was over, because it was like a 9 month, you know, event project. It was all about the people. And I just stand by that, to go, the way that they then wanted to tell the individuals within that company's story, because it was all about celebrating this moment in history. So looking in from the outside, someone might go, well, who gives a the people? And I just resonate so much with that. Just going, you find what you love and connect with. And even for something that, you know, had a lot of logistics, a lot of nuts and bolts, didn't look sexy from the outside. I mean, God, it looked amazing when we were finished with this small country town. But the thing about it was the people. And I agree, you just got to fall in love with, like, what's the thing you can fall in love with the fastest?
It's so fun because it's the opposite of too cool for school. And nobody wants to work with too cool for school. And I mean, you know, you get these like top level where, you know, the really fancy pants designers who are brought on just for their signature look or their signature design. Like, I get that.
Oh,
That's a whole brand. on its own. But even then, they didn't get there from being too cool for school. And it's really hard as well. I think in creative fields, it attracts too cool for school, not because designers and creatives want to be like that, but because there's so, the fear of rejection means you kind of get this, uh, too cool for school. And it's a downer.
100%. It absolutely is a downer. And I think the other thing that I would say to that specifically is for people who are maybe wanting to go into this industry or who already are in it, do not ever forget the person who's put you in that seat, and that is your client, and they are to be valued at every single timestamp of your project and post-project. Like, we have an incredibly high retention rate of repeat customers and clients, and there's a reason for that. And yes, there is a certain time of the year when they are our complete focus. Let's say if we're doing a roadshow around the country, like that is our focus. And there is nothing more important than our clients. But it's not just like when they're not our active client, people want to feel valued and people want to feel seen and they want to feel heard. And I feel like that is such a critical piece of creative business, is how do you do that in the big things, in the macro and in the micro and in the post-project and post-event.
Yes, and that's the rub, is the outputs can look one way, but if the brief, if what's created doesn't match the brief, the outputs are irregardless. Like the outputs are just something else. And we both see it. Like you see very expensive events and people are like walking out stone-faced.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
Yeah. So if it doesn't meet the brief, then it's just, and that's how another way I describe design is you've got money, like commerciality, and you've got art, and where the two overlap is design. And
100%.
Yeah, it's that bit. It's getting that bit right, which of course is a dance between the client and the supplier.
Every bit. And I think that's where like clear communication is just so, so vital, because, we've been in situations, particularly early on in the business, where, people love to ask for stuff for free. They don't anymore. And I would just shut that shit down straight away because, well, A, my mortgage isn't free. My children's school fees aren't free. But even greater than that, my time is not free, because I've been doing this for a really long time and I bring a whole lot of value, and as do you. And it's not about the monetary exchange necessarily, but it's about the value, of that. And so the thing that if ever I get even a whiff of a client, just like testing the waters of just going, so if we were to maybe, what could this look like? And this isn't a budget conversation. This is very different to going, here are our budget parameters, and this is where we can, we can stretch to. That's an honest financial conversation. And I think that's wonderful. But it's when they're trying to go, well, could you kind of do me a favor on this? And the way that I will always phrase that is that I will never ask one of my supply partners, one of our event partners, one of our artisans to do anything for free at a discounted rate, because we work with them week in, week out. And what they bring to my business is critical for your event and for everyone else's event. So it's just a no. Here is what it is. We can maybe cut back the numbers of, like, let's say the number of florals or the number of what have you, if we need to fit within a budget, but we won't be asking anybody to do anything at a discounted rate, because that's just not who I am. It's not how we fly. And I remember being in my teens and early 20s and just people just going, oh, like, she seems really efficient. I'm just going to get her to do this. And as a reformed now people pleaser, I used to just, yeah, absolutely, I'll do that, because you think it's going to get you somewhere.
Oh my God, yes.
And it's rife in our industry. I don't know if it's rife in your industry. It is rife in events.
100%. The promise of the never, never client that's never, never going to land, but they need a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we got you this, we could get you this promotion. I was like, you show me the ROI of that. And if there's no ROI on that, it's a no. because no, it's a no. It's rife. It's rife. So we're an absolute no to that. Thanks, but no
Yeah.
thanks.
And also it goes both ways as well, because just like, you explain, I would never ask a supplier to discount. At the same time, you're never going to ask the client either to discount. You're never going to, if you were to
100%.
do that, then what you deliver would be compromised, and you're guaranteeing you're never going to compromise what you deliver. So it's a beautiful two-way street in a really positive sense, because I know, especially when you're younger, I'm the same. I'm a recovering people pleaser. And it takes navigation, especially in Australia. And I always bang on about this, but Australia and creative industries and design is hard yakka. Like when you go overseas and you work in other countries and cultures that really embrace design, and you send the prop through and the client says yes, you know, oh, because we're in Australia. Like it's a whole different, yeah, so it's hard. It's hard here not to say like yes to doing favors for people. Also, and one of the gifts of being older is that we're a lot faster at doing the same thing. And then there's this, I think lawyers and accountants must go through it too. You get faster and faster. So does that mean you earn less and less
Yeah,
per
no,
hour?
no.
If you're charging a daily rate or an hourly
Absolutely.
rate.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think then you have the introduction of AI and some of the wonderful efficiencies that it brings. But the wonderful thing that I know, and we use it within our business every day. But the wonderful thing is, I know it can never replace this, so we're good.
No. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, AI is a total beast, but a gorgeous beast. I've rejected it for a long time, and I still
Did
don't do the
you?
copy side. Yeah, the copy side, I'm like, I can barely be bothered reading something someone wrote, let alone a machine. And you're blessed, but no, thank you. But
100%.
visually, I took it for a spin recently because we're doing renovating our house. So I took it
Yes.
for a spin on the house renovation, and I was like, holy shit, game changer. I get it. I get it. I get it. And it's great, but you can't build from it. So we're lucky in our industry. It's not, you can't sit with the client and the client be like, well, actually, that drawer needs to be so far deep because it's good to have the pause in it, or like,
Exactly.
yeah.
So,
So
and
it's,
same with us.
mm,
It is never going to replace the human factor. But I think if used well, it can be a really, really powerful and
it's a
mm,
gorgeous tool. It's a gorgeous
yeah.
tool. Two more things I would love to cover with you. And this is where I think you and I really reconnected last year is I post, I think on LinkedIn or Instagram, my joy and wonderment at watching the Parisian Olympic Games opening ceremony. And this jaded old lele that I am, because I was, got up on a Saturday morning. I was like, oh, all right, let's watch this malarkey, or Sunday morning, whatever it was. And then I was taken on this flight of fancy across Paris. I was like,
Oh my gosh.
and it just showed how jaded I had become with the Olympics and with all
Oh,
of that kind of commercial
mm,
venture. And then when Lady Gaga came on, Clutch My Pearls, life changing. Like I still think about that in my spare time. So from posting it, and then you reached out immediately, and I was like, we hadn't crossed each other's paths for a long time. And I knew you got it in your core too. So goss me, tell me your
mm.
experience.
Oh my God. Look, well, to start with, I apologize. I probably like brain dumped like so many voice notes to you because that's what I do and I'm really passionate and people hate it. And I'm like, sorry, there's too many words for texting. I don't have time to text. So I'm sorry if I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. I had a very much the same experience as you. And I had just been talking just before the Paris Olympics to a colleague going, what's what's Brisbane going to do? Like, what do you think Brisbane's going to do? And we were just talking about, the very fundamental differences between Paris, Brisbane, history. I mean, this anyway. And so seeing the creativity of that opening ceremony, I wrote to the guy, to the creative director. I mean, what a weirdo.
Wonderful. I love that.
I stalked him on Instagram and I wrote to him just basically singing his praises because to think of a concept, a moving, not just visually appealing, but engaging concept for a worldwide audience, to think of that from nothing. Like if you think about that, there was no idea, and then there's this explosion and journey. And I think that was the thing that I loved so much is that it kind of started in one spot and then it kind of took this path and it of course weaved in a lot of historical references, but then there were just such gorgeous fashion references. I mean, those Louis Vuitton stacks, I was like, oh my God, just they were just stunning. And then they were up on the roof, and just the thought-filled nature of every detail, like the Dior gowns, the reference to the French flag, like all of it was so beautiful. And then to be able to travel along the Seine with the technology and the videographers who are actually doing, like, capturing it all for us at home, I just thought it was just exceptional. I thought it was edgy. I loved all the little really cheeky, edgy parts as well. And I think it just really spoke to a really honest culture, which I just think is so colorful and vibrant and to be celebrated. And it's not just a two-dimensional, it's a city of love. Like, it wasn't cliched. And I loved that. I did, however, talk to a girlfriend who lives in Paris, and she gave a very different observation around, because they were at a friend's apartment. Like, can you imagine? Like, you're sitting watching the Sydney fireworks and you're at a mate's apartment on the harbour. You're seeing what's in front of you. So I think they definitely designed that event experience for the television viewers, and I'm so grateful for that. But it was very interesting. She's like, look, we saw kind of snippets, but of course it wasn't as engaging. And then, I mean, Celine. And
again, jaded until then.
I can't even, her gown. She had said, I read an interview of hers that they had given her different options of where potentially as they were workshopping the creative. And she's like, I will only do it on the Eiffel Tower. Like, you queen. You absolute queen. Because it had to be there. She had to be there in that gown at the end as a crescendo. Thanks for coming. See you later. It was spectacular.
Tingled in my legs. Oh my goodness. It was spectacular. Yeah. And I totally appreciate it, because I did watching it and it was raining, and I was like, oh, good Lord, how is any local going to ever absorb, so anyone who's there going to absorb it? But then also in their defense, I suppose, at the same time, safety, security, and moving people, tough. So this way,
really tough.
Yeah, on the ground, not so fun for them, but at least less logistics on that side. Pre-recorded content went in as well, and
it was so smart. And actually, what you said, that pre-recorded content was so magical and just so on point. It was so good. And then, of course, my event brain just kept going, oh God, like, it's bucketing down. There's no wet weather plan.
Yes, and Lady Gaga with those feathers. Oh my God. And the rain. Zutella. Did you hear back from? It's because it's Thomas Jolly, isn't it?
Yes. No, I didn't hear back. And do you know what? It was never the intention. It was never the intention. I think I'm such a firm believer in supporting just creatives, like, for nothing in return. I'm that woman who I kind of do this probably once a fortnight. I go put a Google review on a business who I've had some interaction with in the last fortnight, because you know what it's like when you are new in an industry and you are trying to, or a new business, all of that matters. And I just think when people do great work, it should be recognized, because I think people are so quick these days to only give feedback when it's negative. And don't get me wrong, I'm very open to that, but I will always have a personal conversation with someone about that. I would never put anything on online, but I always think, I think the more encouragement we can give creatives, the better. I mean, please, there is enough self-doubt in our little creative minds that it doesn't cost anything just to shoot someone a quick note and go, hey, I love your work. I reckon it's just awesome. Or even better, buy a piece of their art, or actually, like, fiscally support them. That's even better.
Yeah, 100%. But this is why, I call you a natural entrepreneur and a true entrepreneur, because you're seeing things sideways, and also you're about building community. And I've always really admired that about you. I've always seen you, so, like, if you're in your sisterhood, everyone's feeling your love, and I can feel that. And that, I think, is one of the true things with entrepreneurialism, because entrepreneurialism is, I think, misrepresented a lot. And one of the misrepresentations is it's a solo pursuit. And in some ways it is, but in other ways it's all about community. Getting something off the ground takes teamwork.
100%. I can't do an event on my own ever. Like, I've got this incredible group of people around me who I am so grateful that they choose to work with me and with Sapia. We've got all our suppliers, we've got clients, you've got logistics, you have got, and everyone in the middle. Like, do you know the most important person to me at an event, pre-event start, is that cleaner who comes through that venue 15 minutes before doors. Like, that's the last 2%. Because if there's crumbs and, I don't know, floral stuff happens as you're bumping in and setting up, everyone's critical, and it is absolutely a team effort for sure.
Mm.
And anyone who thinks it's not, get over yourself.
The door will show itself to you.
The door will show itself. Yeah,
Door will
exactly.
show itself.
Oh, yeah.
And just for my final question, what advice would you have for event designers and, or if it resonates more, creative entrepreneurs who are a couple of steps behind you?
That is a great question. And I wrote down some notes about this actually, because I think I love the thought of young people getting into business because it wasn't a natural pathway. I went to an all-girls school. There was an assumption that I would go to university, and I wish I had known more about myself and my brain at the time to go, I'm going to have a great time, but it's probably going to be a waste of tens of thousands of dollars, to be honest. Whereas if I could get straight into it, I think that would have been good. So I think for this next generation of people getting into a creative industry, and particularly in events, I think the first thing is, please do not think it's glamorous. The end result absolutely is. That is the point. That is the point. If that is what we're achieving. I have worked with many young people. It attracts, events seems to predominantly attract a lot of a female demographic. I love working with women, particularly young women. And I think there is an expectation that it is just a lot of flitting around and being glamorous. It's really hard work. So that would be the first thing, is that just be ready for everything that precedes the glamour, because that glamour moment's just 5 minutes and then the doors open and then it starts. I think the other thing I would say to young people, or people wanting to get into this industry, is just, what do you want out of it? And again, it's reverse engineering what you want your life to look like. And I've been deep diving into a lot of this, maybe it's age, but of going, all right, well, what do you want life to look like? And what suits your personality? Some people are highly energized of being around people. I'm an introverted extrovert, so I very much get energy from being with people. So after this interview, I'm going to be so energized because I've had time with you. You have filled my cup. I've learned things, and we've had this beautiful exchange of ideas. Whereas after an event weekend, I am home. Do not talk to me. My kids are asking me to play hide and seek. I'm like, I absolutely cannot do that right now. My cup is full. Do not ask me to cook a meal, because it takes so much out of you. So I guess I would look at, what kind of personality do you have and what kind of things do you enjoy? Because I think there's a natural skill set that is required, but I think you don't also have to be able to do everything. You can get great people around you to do other things, like logistics and operations and what have you. And I think the other thing is, and I guess this piggybacks, I suppose, on the kind of what you want life to look like. Know your numbers. We talked about it before. Know what you want out of your business. So is it a side hustle that you're really happy that your creative cup is going to be filled on a weekend and you're going to work one weekend a month and that's what's important to you? Whereas if you are wanting to build a business, like, you need to know your numbers and you need to know what that looks like and what profit margins are in what different aspects of your event business. And I think that is really important. I think it's learned. I think there should be a school to teach maybe more of that. But I think really knowing your numbers, because again, you might work that out and then go, actually, this is not for me at all. And so, yeah, those would be my three things. I know they're very practical things, but
that's the best kind. That is excellent advice. Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us today. It has been an absolute delight. Of course, there'll be a link to Sapia Creative with the episode. And thank you again, Samantha, so much for your time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, Renee.